He had never expected to stand in the middle of an alien diplomatic hall, surrounded by beings from worlds he had only seen in training files. Kale moved slowly, trying not to look nervous. Even though everything around him felt unreal, the air carried a faint metallic scent, and soft glowing panels lined the curved walls like waves frozen in motion. Above him, a transparent ceiling revealed distant stars drifting past, reminding him just how far he was from Earth. Kyle was not a soldier or a famous diplomat. He was a technician, a problem solver, someone who fixed things when they stopped working. Humans had only recently joined the wider galactic community, and most alien species still did not know what to make of them. Some believed humans were reckless. Others thought they were too emotional. A few believed they were dangerous because they adapted too quickly. That was why Kale had been sent to the summit, not because he held power, but because humans believed in showing cooperation in simple ways. He had been told to observe, assist when needed, and avoid causing offense. The last instruction repeated in his mind constantly as he walked across the polished floor. Representatives from dozens of species filled the hall. Tall figures with shining skin spoke in low voices. Smaller beings floated gently above their seats, their movements slow and graceful. Mechanical translators hummed softly, converting languages into a shared form of communication. Everyone seemed careful and formal, as if every word could start or end a war. Kale adjusted the small toolkit at his side. It felt familiar and comforting. Machines made sense. You fixed the problem, checked the system, and moved forward. People were more complicated, especially alien leaders with centuries of history behind their decisions. He noticed a group of delegates suddenly grow quiet. Conversations stopped, and several beings straightened in their seats. The atmosphere shifted like a storm rolling in. "She is arriving!" whispered a nearby translator unit. Kale followed their gaze toward the main entrance. The alien queen stepped inside. Her armor reflected the soft light of the chamber, not brightly, but with a calm strength that drew attention without needing to demand it. The design was unlike anything human engineers created. Smooth layers overlapped like living metal, moving slightly as she walked. Symbols etched into the surface glowed faintly, telling stories Kale could not read but felt held meaning. Everyone bowed or lowered their gaze. Kyle hesitated. He had read about her before coming here. She was known as a warrior ruler who led her people through countless conflicts. Some reports described her as distant, others as precise and unstoppable. None mentioned laughter or warmth. He felt unsure what the correct response should be. Humans did not always follow rigid rituals, and sometimes that made others uncomfortable. So he did what felt natural. He simply watched. Not with disrespect, but with curiosity. The armor fascinated him. The joints were perfectly aligned, suggesting advanced engineering. The material looked strong yet flexible, and tiny energy channels ran along its surface. Before he realized it, he was already thinking about how it worked. The queen took her seat at the central platform. Silence spread across the hall, heavy and expectant. Negotiations were about to begin. Then the unexpected happened. The main translation system flickered. Lights dimmed briefly, and a low warning tone sounded through the chamber. Several delegates exchanged alarmed looks. The translation network was essential for communication between species. Without it, misunderstandings could easily grow into conflict. Technicians from different factions rushed forward, speaking quickly in their own languages. Kale felt his instincts take over. He stepped toward the console, scanning the interface. The system design was unfamiliar, but the logic behind machines was often universal. He hesitated for a second. This was not his station, but no one else seemed to have a clear solution. "May I try?" he asked carefully. A nearby delegate looked unsure but nodded. Kale knelt beside the console and opened a panel. Inside, glowing circuits pulsed unevenly. He recognized the problem quickly. A synchronization loop had failed, causing the system to repeat commands until it overloaded. He worked quickly, adjusting the connections and resetting the cycle manually. The hall remained silent, watching. He could feel eyes on him, especially one pair that felt heavier than the rest. After a few moments, the lights steadied. The translation network returned to normal. Soft voices resumed as delegates tested communication. Kale released the slow breath. When he stood, he realized the Queen was looking directly at him. Her helmet hit her face completely, reflecting only the room around her. He felt a sudden wave of awareness, realizing that he might have overstepped his role. He cleared his throat. Sorry, it just needed a small adjustment. Then, she tilted her head slightly, studying him. Kale felt the silence stretch longer than he liked. His mind searched for something appropriate to say, something respectful and neutral. Instead, the words that came out were honest and simple. Your armor looks great, he said, almost absent-mindedly. The design is incredible. Several delegates turned toward him in shock. One dropped a data tablet, which clattered softly against the floor. Kale realized too late that he might have broken some important rule. Complimenting a ruler's armor could carry cultural meaning he did not understand. He opened his mouth to apologize. Before he could speak, a sound echoed across the chamber. Laughter. It was warm and genuine, completely unexpected. The Queen laughed. It was not loud, but it carried enough emotion to break the tension instantly. Delegates looked stunned, as if they had witnessed something impossible. She reached up slowly and removed her helmet. Kale blinked. Her face was calm, but alive with expression. Her eyes held intelligence and curiosity rather than cold distance. For a moment, she looked less like a distant ruler, and more like someone discovering something new.
No one has spoken to me like that in many cycles, she said. Her voice carried strength, but also amusement.
Kale rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. I just meant it as a compliment. The craftsmanship is impressive. I understand, she replied. The atmosphere shifted again, but this time, the tension faded into curiosity. Negotiations continued after that, but Kale could feel subtle changes in how others behaved. Some watched him with interest, others with suspicion. When the session ended, a royal attendant approached him. The Queen requests your presence. Kale felt his stomach tighten. He followed the attendant through quiet corridors away from the crowded hall. The station's architecture became more personal, less formal. Soft lights glowed along the walls, and distant sounds of machinery hummed like a heartbeat. He wondered if he had made a mistake. When he entered the private chamber, the Queen stood near a large window overlooking space. Without her helmet, she appeared more approachable, but no less powerful. You are human, she said, without turning. Yes, you are not afraid. Kyle thought carefully. I get nervous. I just try not to let it stop me. She turned toward him slowly. Your honesty is unusual. Most speak carefully to avoid offense. I usually try to be respectful, he said, but I also think honesty helps people understand each other. She considered his words. For my people, armor represents duty. It is not often praised as something beautiful. Well, Kale said with a small smile, it is both strong and beautiful. That seems like a good balance. She studied him again, and for a moment, he felt like she could see through every thought he had. You fixed the system quickly, she said. Machines make sense to me. And people? He hesitated. Still learning. Another quiet laugh escaped her. In that moment, Kale realized something important. The Queen was not distant because she lacked emotion. She carried responsibility that forced her to hide it. Their conversation continued, simple but meaningful. She asked about humans, about why they spoke casually even in formal settings. He explained that humans often used humor to reduce tension. She listened closely, as if gathering pieces of a puzzle. When he finally left, Kale sensed that something had changed. though he could not explain what. Across the station, whispers spread. The Queen had laughed. A human had spoken without fear. The balance of expectations had shifted. Cale returned to his quarters feeling both relieved and uncertain. He had come to fix machines. Instead, he had started something far more complicated, and somewhere deep inside, he felt that this was only the beginning. Cale did not sleep well that night. His small room on the diplomatic station was quiet, but his mind was loud. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the hall again. The shining armor, the silence, the shocked faces, and then the impossible sound of laughter. He replayed his own words over and over, wondering how a simple compliment had turned into something that felt bigger than him.
When morning arrived, the station's lights shifted into a soft daylight tone.
Cale sat up, washed his face, and tried to focus on normal tasks. He checked his communicator. No messages from Earth Command. No warnings. No angry orders. That made him feel both relieved and uneasy. On his way to the engineering bay, he noticed something strange. People were watching him, not openly, but enough for him to feel it. Delegates passed in groups, and their conversations slowed when he walked by. A few looked away quickly. Others studied him like he was a new kind of problem. Cale kept his pace steady. He reminded himself of the mission: assist, observe, keep things stable. Still, the royal attendant's words echoed in his head.
The Queen requests your presence. It was not a request that went away after one meeting. It was a doorway that had opened.
In the engineering bay, Cale tried to lose himself in work. The station's systems were complex, built by multiple species over many years. Different power grids connected through careful converters. Different air systems balanced atmospheric needs for several forms of life. Nothing was simple, and that suited him. He liked puzzles. He was examining a power relay when a station officer approached.
You are Cale Meron,
the officer said through a translator.
Yes. You are needed in the upper corridor. Private channel.
Is something wrong?
The officer's eyes, round and pale, stayed neutral. No confirmed problem.
It is a formal summon. Cale nodded and followed.
As he walked, he noticed more security than usual. Not hostile, but present. Quiet guards stood in corners, and drones hovered near ceiling lines. The station was not in panic, but it was tense, like a string pulled tight. The upper corridor led to a private chamber near the Queen's temporary quarters. The royal attendant from yesterday waited there, perfectly still.
She will see you now,
the attendant said. Cale stepped inside. The chamber was different from the cold public halls. The lighting was warm and low. The floor was soft under his boots, made from a woven material that looked like it came from living plants. A table stood in the center with simple objects placed neatly. A cup of steaming liquid, a small device like a hologram projector, and something that looked like a folded piece of cloth. The Queen stood near the window again, but this time she was not fully armored. She wore a lighter form of protective gear, still strong, but less ceremonial. Her helmet rested on a stand beside her, like a sleeping animal. Cale's attention went to the helmet before he could stop himself. The inside looked carefully shaped. It was not just a tool. It was personal. The Queen turned and looked at him.
You came quickly, she said. I was told it was formal, Cale replied.
I didn't want to delay. A small hint of amusement touched her expression. You treat words seriously. Cale shifted his weight, unsure if that was praise or an observation. She gestured toward the table. Sit. He sat carefully. The Queen did not sit immediately. She paced slowly, as if thinking while moving. Her steps made almost no sound. Yesterday, she said, you changed the room. Cale blinked. I didn't mean to.
You did not insult me, she interrupted calmly.
You did something rare. Kale waited. You spoke without fear. She continued.
Not because you are careless, because you are honest.
Kale swallowed. On Earth, we don't always bow to leaders. We respect them, but we also talk. Sometimes too much.
The Queen stopped pacing and studied him. Many here assume humans speak too much because they are weak, she said.
They believe control means silence. Shh. Kale frowned slightly. Silence can be strong, but it can also hide fear. The Queen's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in interest. You see patterns, she said. I work with systems, Kale replied. Patterns are how you understand what's broken. The Queen moved to the table and picked up the cup. She did not drink. She simply held it, looking at the steam rising. My armor, she said quietly, is a symbol. When I wear it, I am not fully myself. I am what my people need me to be. Kale listened carefully. People speak to the symbol, she continued. Not to the person they offer formal words.
They measure every breath. They act as if I am carved from stone.
Kyle kept his voice gentle. That sounds lonely.
Lonely is not a word my people use easily, she said. But perhaps it is accurate. Kyle hesitated, then said, Maybe that is why you laughed. The Queen's expression softened slightly, as if he had named something she did not want to admit. Perhaps, she said. A quiet pause followed. Then she reached toward the small device on the table and activated it. A hologram appeared. A map of the station, with several areas highlighted. Do you understand this system? She asked. Kyle leaned forward. Security layout? Yes, she said. There were minor disturbances last night. Not enough to cause alarm, but enough to show intent.
Kale's chest tightened. Intent for what? The Queen's tone stayed calm.
To test, to push boundaries, to see where weakness exists. Those areas are near translation hubs and power junctions. The Queen nodded once. You notice quickly. If someone disrupts translation during negotiations, it could create confusion. If they disrupt power, the station's systems could fail. Even small interruptions can cause panic. And panic can be shaped, the Queen said. Kale looked up. Do you think someone wants the talks to collapse? I think someone fears what peace would change, she replied. Kale felt a cold heaviness settle in his stomach. And you called me here because you fix what others cannot, she said. And because you are not woven into the old games of this place. You are new. You are outside the usual paths. Kyle exhaled slowly. You want me to help investigate? The Queen's eyes held steady. Yes. Kale thought of the rules he had been given. Observe. Assist. Avoid offense. Nothing about secret investigations with an alien queen. But the station was fragile. If something went wrong, people would blame humans first, because humans were the newest and easiest target. I'll help, Kale said. But I need to be careful. If others see me working directly with you, they might assume humans are manipulating you.
The Queen's lips curved slightly. They already assume that. Kale gave a weak smile.
Then we should not make it easy for them. The Queen considered him, then nodded. Agreed. She moved toward the door, and a guard outside stepped aside. The Queen did not bring a full escort. Only one attendant followed at a distance. Kale walked beside her through quiet corridors. The station felt different when he moved with her. Doors opened faster. People stepped out of the way.
The air itself seemed to hold its breath. They reached a service access area near one of the translation hubs.
A sealed panel stood in the wall, marked with warnings in several languages. Kales knelt and examined the lock.
This was opened recently.
The Queen's eyes sharpened.
How can you tell?
The seal line is slightly warped, Kale said. Someone used a tool that didn't match the lock standard. He opened the panel carefully. Inside, thin cables and glowing nodes connected to a central processor. At first glance, everything looked normal. Then Kale noticed a tiny extra piece attached to a data line. It was small enough that many would miss it, but it did not match the station's design. He pointed.
That's not original.
The Queen leaned closer.
What is it?
A listening device. KL.
Or a command injector, something that can alter the flow. The Queen's posture tightened, but her voice stayed calm.
Can it be traced?
Kale gently removed it, holding it like a dangerous insect. Maybe, but whoever planted it probably used a route that leaves minimal record.
Ah!
He examined the device. It was made from layered materials, part organic, part synthetic. It did not look like the Queen's technology or the station's. This is from a third party, Kale said.
Someone who wants to remain unseen.
The Queen's expression hardened slightly.
A hidden hand.
Kale looked at her. If we accuse anyone without proof, it will explode. Yes, she replied. That is why we gather proof. Then another. In 2 more locations, Kale found signs of tampering. Not enough to break the system yet, but enough to create small failures on command. He felt a growing tension in his chest. Someone was setting the stage for a bigger event. Between checks, the Queen asked him questions. Not just about technology, but about humans. Why did you not lower your eyes? She asked quietly as they walked. Aiel was honest. On Earth, if you stare at the floor, you might miss what's happening.
I'm trained to watch. Also, I didn't want to act like I feared you.
The Queen studied him as they walked.
Many fear me.
You have power. Power scares people. But fear isn't respect. It's just fear. The Queen's gaze turned forward. You separate those things.
I'd try, Kale said.
Sometimes I fail. A faint smile returned to her face. Your people are strange. Kale chuckled softly. We say the same about everyone else. That made her laugh again. Short and quiet, but real.
Kale noticed something in that moment.
The laughter did not weaken her. It made her feel more alive. It made her presence deeper, like a storm that could also bring rain to dry land. Later, they reached a corridor where multiple delegate security teams stood. The Queen slowed, and Kale felt the weight of attention again. Several aliens watched the Queen, then looked at Kale, their expressions hard to read. One tall delegate with sharp features stepped forward. Their clothing carried symbols of an old alliance.
Your Majesty,
the delegate said. You walk with the human. The Queen's voice stayed calm. Yes. The delegate's gaze moved to Kale.
Does this human now act as your advisor? Kael's heart beat faster. The question was loaded.
If he answered wrong, he could cause political damage. The Queen answered before Kale could speak. He acts as a technician. The delegate's eyes narrowed. A technician does not usually walk these halls with a ruler. Kale kept his face neutral. He reminded himself, do not argue. Do not escalate. The Queen's tone did not change, but something in it became sharper.
A wise ruler uses all tools available.
The delegate paused, then stepped back. Clearly, not pleased. As they moved on, Kale breathed out slowly.
Do they suspect you?
He asked.
They suspect everyone, the Queen replied. But humans are convenient targets because they are new.
Then we need evidence that cannot be ignored.
The Queen looked at him. Humans, you build trust through proof and action. We do, Kale said. Words matter, but actions last longer. The Queen's expression softened again, and Kale felt like she was learning him the way he learned machines, through observation, trial, and pattern. They returned to her chamber with 3 devices collected in several locations recorded. The Queen placed the devices in a sealed container. These are seeds, she said.
If left alone, they would grow into disaster.
Kale sat again, feeling the weight of what they had discovered. Who would do this? He asked. The Queen's gaze turned distant. Those who profit from conflict. Those who fear change. Those who cannot accept that old power may shift. Kyle thought about the delegates watching him, the way the room froze when he spoke, the way eyes followed him now. If a big incident happens, he said quietly, humans will be blamed. The Queen nodded once. That is likely.
Then we stop it before it happens. The Queen studied him for a long moment. You are small compared to the forces around us, she said.
Yet you speak as if you can push back the tide. Kale's voice stayed steady. On Earth, we learned something early.
Tides look unstoppable until you build something that redirects them. Not by being bigger, by being smarter. The Queen's eyes held a quiet respect.
That is why your species has survived.
Kyle felt a strange warmth in his chest at that. Then the Queen did something unexpected. She reached for her helmet and lifted it, holding it with both hands. She stared at it for a moment like someone staring at an old memory.
I will not wear it tonight,
she said quietly. Kale blinked. Because of the investigation? Because of trust, she replied. Kale did not know how to respond. The Queen placed the helmet back on the stand, but she did not put it on. Instead, she stood facing him openly, without the barrier. Kale understood the message. In her world, removing the helmet was not casual. It was a sign of vulnerability, of allowing someone to see what others were never allowed to see.
You should be careful, Kale said softly.
If others know you trust me, they might use that against you. The Queen's expression did not change, but her eyes carried meaning. Let them try. Kale paused, then nodded.
All right.
As he left her chamber, he felt the station's tension more strongly than before. The halls were the same, but the air felt sharper, like something waiting to strike. Back in his room, Kale sent a brief update to his human supervisor, carefully worded, with no mention of private meetings. He described signs of sabotage, recommended increased technical monitoring, and asked for discreet support. Then he sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the wall. He had wanted to be invisible here, just a technician. Now he was tied to something dangerous and important. Somewhere on the station, someone had planted those devices. Someone was watching the negotiations, like a predator watching a herd. Hale did not know who it was yet, but he knew one thing clearly. If the hidden hand struck, the entire station could fall into chaos, and humans would likely pay the price first. He clenched his fists, then forced them to relax. He had fixed broken systems his whole life. Now he had to fix something far more fragile. Trust. Kale woke to a soft vibration from the station's communication panel. The morning star field shimmered through the transparent ceiling, reminding him how far from Earth he truly was. He rubbed his eyes and scanned the message, an encrypted request from the alien queen herself. He had expected her to continue observing from a distance after yesterday's events, but the message instructed him to meet immediately at a remote observation deck. The tone was formal, yet unusual, direct and personal. His heart beat faster. He had been careful, meticulous, following rules to avoid drawing unnecessary attention. Yet somehow, he had earned direct contact with the most powerful figure in the station. Kale left his quarters and moved quickly through the corridors. The station felt alive in the early hours. Lights pulsed softly, maintenance drones drifted along hallways, and the hum of life support systems created a quiet rhythm beneath it all. Every eye seemed to follow him as he passed, though no one dared approach. The Queen's presence carried weight, and anyone associated with her drew curiosity or suspicion. The observation deck lay at the station's edge, overlooking a vast expanse of asteroid fields and distant planets. The windows stretched from floor to ceiling, offering a panorama that was breathtaking. Kyle stepped inside and found the Queen already there, standing with her helmet removed, her eyes reflecting the distant stars.
"You came early," she said without turning. "I didn't want to waste time," Kale replied. "There are things to check, and I wanted to see the view."
The Queen glanced at him briefly and smiled. Most humans would be intimidated. "I've seen enough stars to know they don't care who stands beneath them," he said. His words were simple, but he noticed her eyes soften. For a moment, she seemed less like the unapproachable ruler, and more like someone human, someone curious about the world beyond her own armor. She turned to face him fully.
Yesterday you spoke without fear.
Today, you follow with action. I must understand why. Kale shrugged. I've always found that fear doesn't help. When systems break or threats arise, hesitation can cost lives. I prefer to act.
The Queen studied him for a long moment. Your species is remarkable in its
simplicity. You act honestly without the games that others rely on. Kale felt a small thrill. No one had ever described humans in that way to him. We do what we must, he said, and sometimes honesty is the best way to do it. She nodded, then gestured toward a small console on the deck.
There are recent anomalies. Reports indicate tampering across multiple sectors.
Someone is testing the station. You understand the devices we found yesterday?
Kyle moved closer, examining the holographic readouts. The devices were sophisticated, capable of influencing both translation hubs and power conduits, not destructive on their own, but enough to cause confusion during critical moments. Exactly, she said. The goal is not immediate disaster. It is mistrust, fear, and the collapse of cooperation. If humans are blamed first, the chaos spreads faster. Kyle exhaled slowly.
Then we need to anticipate the next step. Whoever is doing this has a plan.
We need to see the pattern.
The Queen's expression hardened.
And if they strike sooner than expected? Kyle studied the holograms carefully. We can create redundancy, isolate vulnerable nodes, monitor communications, and deploy decoys to reveal the source. It's risky, but feasible. She moved closer, her presence commanding, yet not threatening. Risky is acceptable if it prevents calamity. They worked together for hours, moving through station schematics and security grids. Kale noted the Queen's attention to detail, her strategic mind cutting through layers of potential chaos. She observed patterns he might have missed, anticipated reactions from other species, and even questioned why certain sectors received more attention than others. He realized that the Queen's reputation for precision and authority was not exaggeration. It was cultivated intelligence, honed over countless cycles of leadership. As they analyzed the data, Kale noticed a subtle change in her demeanor. While still formal, she began asking questions not just about the technical aspects, but about his reasoning. Why would you choose this approach? She asked, pointing to a proposed monitoring strategy.
Because someone who wants to remain hidden will avoid obvious paths, Kale explained. We need to anticipate creativity, not brute force.
Predictable actions are easy to counter. Unpredictable ones are dangerous, but they also reveal intent if watched carefully.
The Queen nodded thoughtfully. Humans?
You value adaptability over tradition.
That is not a common quality in a species with limited interstellar history. I suppose, Kale said, when you're new, you learn fast or fail fast. There isn't time to hesitate. She smiled briefly, a small curve of her lips. Perhaps that is why you stand here with me instead of behind a console. The conversation shifted as they reviewed logs of recent events. Small anomalies that others dismissed as routine maintenance began to form a pattern. Someone had deliberately altered power cycles, subtly rerouted data, and left misleading logs. It was a slow, careful approach, designed to cause mistrust without immediate detection.
Kale traced the paths. They're testing our response times and procedures.
They want to see if errors escalate naturally, or if we intervene. And if we intervene? The Queen asked. Then we expose them, Kale said. But it must look natural. If we move too quickly or too obviously, they'll know we are aware. The Queen's gaze remained on him, sharp yet reflective. You speak of deception as a tool for defense, sometimes, Kale said. It's about understanding the game without playing the game recklessly. They paused, listening to the faint hum of the station. Outside the observation deck, the artificial lights cast long shadows across the walls. The stars beyond seemed indifferent to the dangers within. Do you trust humans? The Queen asked suddenly, her voice low and almost vulnerable. Kale blinked. I trust people who act honestly, who do their best in dangerous situations. I haven't met many species here like that, but I have met you. She studied him, the faintest hint of surprise in her eyes. That is remarkable. Few leaders acknowledge trust so openly. I believe trust is earned, not demanded, Kale said simply. The Queen nodded. For the first time, she seemed less like an untouchable figure and more like someone seeking connection in a universe full of suspicion. Their work continued into the next cycle. Together, they identified subtle links between the tampered systems. Small relay points connected to secondary hubs. Data flow suggested that someone on the station had insider knowledge. Kale pointed to one of the nodes. This one is interesting. If we monitor it, we may catch the source without alerting them.
The Queen leaned closer.
And if it is someone within our own alliance?
Then we proceed cautiously, Kale said. We don't want to accuse the wrong person and destabilize everything.
She considered him for a long moment.
Your reasoning is clear. Your caution is human and wise.
Kale felt a flicker of pride, but kept his focus on the task. They activated monitoring systems and set up alerts that would report any tampering immediately. It was delicate work, requiring precision and patience. As the cycle passed, they reviewed the intercepted data together. Patterns began to emerge, specific times, repeated subtle actions, and an unusual energy signature. The devices were sophisticated, built to blend in with the station's systems. Whoever had created them had extensive knowledge of both alien technology and human engineering principles. This is advanced, Kale said. We're not just dealing with a random saboteur. This is someone who wants control and can manipulate systems without detection.
The Queen's eyes narrowed, and they underestimate you, the human. I've learned that underestimation can be an advantage, Kale replied.
She nodded slowly. That is why you are here. Their discussions moved from systems to strategy. The Queen began explaining her people's customs, their approach to diplomacy, and how deception and negotiation were tools as important as weaponry. Kale listened closely, drawing connections between their methods and his own human reasoning.
I see why you value honesty differently than others,
she said. For humans, honesty is a strength. For my people, it is rare. Sometimes honesty surprises people. That surprise can be powerful if used wisely. They began planning contingencies. Kale suggested creating hidden redundancies in the station's systems. The Queen approved, and they worked through each sector methodically. Each step required care, ensuring that no alarms would alert the saboteur prematurely. During a brief pause, the Queen looked out at the stars again. Do you ever wonder why your species thrives despite being new to the galactic stage? Kyle considered the question. We are adaptable, curious, and willing to risk ourselves to understand. We learn from mistakes faster than some species trust tradition. That makes us unpredictable, and sometimes valuable. She turned to him, eyes reflecting distant light. Unpredictable, yet reliable when necessary. That is rare. Kale realized that he was no longer just a technician. He was a partner, a human presence bridging gaps in a universe dominated by long histories and rigid hierarchies. As night fell on the station, a quiet tension lingered. Monitoring systems flagged minor anomalies, small enough to appear insignificant but patterns that indicated preparation for a larger attempt. Kale reviewed the logs meticulously, noting the times, sequences, and energy signatures. The Queen watched him, quiet but attentive.
You do not panic, she said. Panic rarely fixes things, Kale replied.
You remain calm while observing, analyzing, and acting. That is admirable.
It's necessary. Chaos spreads faster than reason.
I try to slow it down where I can. For a long time, they remained in the observation deck, studying, discussing, and strategizing. Outside, the stars drifted silently, indifferent to the unfolding events within the station. Yet inside, a human and an alien queen worked together, combining human intuition with centuries of alien strategy, bridging worlds through trust, respect, and honesty. By the end of the cycle, Kale felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. They had identified several likely points of attack and set up systems to monitor them. The Queen had begun to rely on his insights not just for technical skill, but for perspective. He understood her patterns, and she had begun to understand his. As Kale prepared to leave the observation deck, the Queen spoke softly.
You have changed the dynamics of this station, human, more than you realize.
Kale paused. I hope it's for the better. She tilted her head slightly, a faint smile crossing her features.
It is because you act with honesty, intelligence, and courage. That combination is rare. Kale nodded, understanding the weight of her words.
This was no ordinary alliance or assignment. He had stepped into something larger, a web of trust, danger, and cooperation that could alter the station's future. Walking back to his quarters, Kale felt the quiet thrill of responsibility. Every step mattered. Every decision carried weight. He was no longer simply a human observer. He had become a participant, a crucial player in a delicate game where one misstep could lead to chaos, and one careful action could ensure stability. The stars continued to drift silently above, witnesses to the growing bond between human ingenuity and alien authority, a bond forged through honesty, respect, and the courage to act when the universe demanded it. And Kale knew this was only the beginning of what would become a test of skill, trust, and survival, on a scale far beyond anything he had ever imagined. Kale felt the weight of the station as he walked through the corridors. Every light, every hum, every soft vibration of the floor seemed heavier today. The quiet tension of previous cycles had deepened into something more urgent. The anomalies they had tracked were not random anymore. Someone was preparing to strike, and the timing was uncertain. He entered the Queen's chamber, finding her already awake and observing the main station grid. Her helmet lay on the table, untouched. She did not speak immediately, letting Kale approach before acknowledging him with a subtle nod.
Updates? She asked finally. Kale tapped on the portable console he carried, showing the mapped anomalies.
All indicators suggest the devices we found are linked, Someone is coordinating their use to create simultaneous disturbances. They're testing our response thresholds and looking for patterns in human and alien reactions alike. The Queen studied the readings. If these disruptions are triggered during a diplomatic session, it could collapse relations entirely. My people would react with suspicion and humans would be blamed first.
That is precisely the outcome the saboteur desires.
Exactly. We need to anticipate each move.
I've prepared countermeasures to monitor and isolate the affected nodes, but this requires constant vigilance. She gestured toward the observation deck. We cannot rely on technology alone. Some of these actions are subtle, emotional, psychological. You have observed my reactions. Your insight into human behavior and decision-making is what I need now. Humans had often been underestimated for their size or lack of experience. Yet here, the Queen sought his opinion not only on technology, but on strategy, judgment, and psychology. He leaned forward, pointing at a specific node on the grid. This node is connected to several translation hubs and relay systems. It is minor alone, but combined with disturbances in other areas, it could create widespread miscommunication.
That's the danger. Small errors escalating naturally.
The Queen's gaze followed his finger.
And the timing? Kale scrolled through data patterns, highlighting recent activity. It seems to follow the rhythm of negotiations.
Every time discussions reach a critical point, the devices send subtle interference. That is how the saboteur tests reactions without revealing their presence. She nodded. Clever, but predictable. That pattern is humanly understandable. That is why I trust you to act.
You anticipate reaction, not just action. Kale realized the full weight of her words.
He was trusted not merely for technical skill, but for human intuition, a quality that alien species often overlooked. Then, what do we do first? He asked. The Queen looked out at the stars, her expression contemplative. We reinforce the systems. We monitor every critical path. But more importantly, we anticipate behavior. We observe the participants, predict their responses, and prepare to respond accordingly. That is how we ensure stability. Kale began setting up additional monitoring arrays. Each device required careful calibration, balancing sensitivity with subtlety. A single error could alert the saboteur. As he worked, the Queen spoke quietly.
You see me without armor often. That is not custom for my people.
Kyle glanced at her. I noticed.
You trust me?
Trust is earned, and I have seen honesty and skill in you. That is rare in this environment. Kale felt a quiet determination.
I won't let you down. Together, they moved through the station, checking relay points and observing traffic flow. Kyle noted the Queen's attention to detail, her ability to predict human and alien reactions alike.
She paused frequently, considering his suggestions, integrating them into her plans, and offering insights of her own. See this junction? She asked, pointing to a series of nodes.
Minor tampering here could be used to redirect data and create confusion. Alone, it is small.
Combined, it becomes chaos. Kyle nodded. We can create a feedback loop to neutralize the tampering without alerting the saboteur. It requires precise timing, but it's possible. They moved to another section of the station where recent anomalies had appeared. Hale noticed subtle discrepancies in energy usage, patterns that might have gone unnoticed by anyone less observant.
This sector is vulnerable, Kale said. The saboteur may use it to trigger a small-scale incident, just enough to test reactions.
Then we must observe without interference until the moment we act. Hours passed as they worked together. Monitoring devices hummed softly, tracking patterns across the station. The Queen asked KL to explain his reasoning for each adjustment, not just the technical details, but the human factors involved. You anticipate reaction based on trust, fear, and expectation, she noted. That is unusual. Most species rely on fear alone. Kale shrugged. Fear can be useful, but it's predictable. Honesty and courage create unpredictability that is harder to counter. That can be more powerful. She studied him carefully. You are teaching me, human. I am learning too, Kale admitted.
From you! Strategy, patience, anticipation. Things humans don't always do well.
The Queen's attention returned to the monitors. Then we must prepare for escalation. I sense the saboteur will act soon. Kale's mind raced.
We have redundancies, monitoring, and alerts. But if they strike during the next diplomatic session, it will be a critical test.
She nodded. Then we must ensure that the first reaction is calm and measured. Panic will be the greatest ally of our opponent. Together, they designed a contingency plan. Monitoring disguised as routine activity, emergency protocols embedded in standard operations, and methods to identify tampering without triggering alarms. Kale noted subtle energy fluctuations at one of the relay points.
Here, he said, this node shows patterns consistent with previous minor disruptions.
If we isolate it, we might catch the source in action. The Queen moved closer, observing. Do so carefully. The saboteur may anticipate intervention. Kale activated a hidden diagnostic, tracing data flows in real time. Small anomalies appeared, a hidden command stream masked within regular traffic, moving toward multiple devices. He isolated the stream and traced its origin to a restricted sector near the docking bays. This is the likely source, Kale said. If we monitor it discreetly, we can catch the saboteur in the act. The Queen nodded. And if it is within our alliance? No accusations, only observation. Proof comes before action. Hours of careful monitoring followed. Every time a device activated, Kale tracked the flow, analyzing patterns, comparing them to previous behavior. He and the Queen worked in near silence, communicating through subtle gestures and quiet commentary, their focus absolute. At one point, a sudden spike in energy caused several monitors to flash. Kale froze. Something's moving. Now.
Be ready. They followed the anomaly through the network, tracing it to a hidden compartment in the docking bay. Kale signaled the Queen, and they approached carefully.
Inside, a small console hummed with activity. It was sophisticated, alien in design, but clearly influenced by human engineering principles. Kale examined it quickly, noting that the hidden command streams were active, poised to disrupt multiple sectors simultaneously. Someone wants maximum effect without exposure, Kale whispered. The Queen studied the device. And they underestimated you, human. That is their mistake. Kale smiled faintly. Then we correct it. Using his knowledge of systems, Kale rerouted the command streams into a controlled feedback loop. The sabotage would appear normal to anyone monitoring, but the actual effect was nullified. Any attempt to trigger chaos would be contained instantly. The Queen observed closely. Clever, she said. Your human ingenuity proves useful beyond expectation.
It's all patterns. You just have to read them correctly.
They returned to the observation deck, where the Queen watched the stars. Your people have an unusual strength, she said softly.
Courage tempered with thought. Honesty tempered with strategy.
And your people?
Strength tempered with patience, she replied.
Authority tempered with calculation.
But sometimes that is rigid. Humans can be flexible. That makes a difference. Kale smiled. Sometimes it's enough to speak honestly. The Queen tilted her head, a small laugh escaping her. Yes, sometimes honesty changes more than action alone. For the rest of the cycle, they observed, analyzed, and prepared for the final move. Every anomaly was recorded, every suspect behavior tracked, Kale felt the station around him transform from an environment of static observation to a dynamic chessboard. Finally, the moment arrived. During a key diplomatic session, the saboteur attempted to activate multiple devices simultaneously. Alarms flashed briefly, but Kale's preparations had anticipated it. The feedback loops neutralized the disruptions instantly, leaving the session uninterrupted. Delegates murmured confusion, but no one noticed the sabotage was prevented. Only Kale and the Queen knew the danger had passed. The Queen removed her helmet fully, facing Kale openly.
You have done well, Hugh.
Your presence prevented disaster. Kale shook his head. We did it together. Your strategy guided every step. She studied him thoughtfully. Perhaps that is the lesson. Strength is not in isolation, but in partnership. You, human, have shown that honesty, courage, and skill can be more powerful than fear or tradition alone. Kale felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had come to the station as a technician, expecting to fix machines. Instead, he had become part of something greater, a bridge between species, a protector of fragile alliances. As the session concluded peacefully, Kale realized that his role had changed forever. He was no longer simply an outsider. He was a trusted presence in a galaxy full of suspicion, a human whose honesty and action had altered the course of events. The Queen smiled faintly. Let this be remembered, not as the day humans acted alone, but as the day humans and leaders acted together, with trust and courage. Kyle nodded, watching the stars drift silently outside the observation deck. The universe remained vast and unpredictable, but for the first time, he felt a quiet confidence. Together, he and the alien Queen had proven that even small acts of courage, honesty, and skill could shift the balance of power, forge trust across cultures, and protect life in ways that no one could anticipate. And as Kale looked at her, he knew this was only the beginning of a partnership that could change the galaxy itself.